This lesson is going to be about the explain method. It's how MongoDB lets you examine queries and see what indexes get used. You can call explain on a collection to create an explainable object. You then get information on queries for that collection by executing the following methods against your explain object: aggregate, count, find, remove, update, and group. Let's take a look at some explain plans in action. First, we'll go into the Mongo shell. Next, we'll throw some documents into a collection and build some indexes. Okay, so we've got our indexes, and the collection contains 1,000,000 documents. Let's do our first explain. This has a lot of fields, but I want you to focus on just a few. First, with the stage, it says index scan. That means it was using an index, specifically the A1, B1 index, which you can see either in the key pattern or in the index name. It also says direction backwards. When we look at our query, we can see that we're sorting by B-1. In order to accommodate that and keep things in order, MongoDB will actually walk the index backwards for you. Let's look at another query, one that doesn't use an index. Here we can see that the winning plan was a collection scan. That's your signal for the fact that you're not using an index. If this were a query that you wanted to put into production, you'd definitely want to build an index for that. As I mentioned earlier, you can also perform write operations with explain. If you do, it does not actually perform the writes, so a remove explain will not remove any documents, and an update explain will not update any documents. But it does let you estimate their time to execute and figure out what indexes you're using. Let's do an example. You can see we've got 100 documents that match this particular query. Let's turn it into a remove and explain it. Here we're looking at the explain plan, and we can see that it uses the B1 index. Oh wait, that was actually a rejected plan. The winning plan uses the A1 B1 index. But we've still got our 100 documents, which would have been removed if that remove had been executed on the collection. So far, all of our queries have been in the default mode, which is to say, query planner mode. Next, we're going to look at execution stats and see how that's different. So execution stats not only includes all of your query planner data, but it also includes things like how much time it takes to execute the query, the number of documents returned, and the number of documents examined, which may not be the same as the number of documents returned. Let's take a look. As an aside, I mentioned earlier that you can create an explainable object by using collection.explain. You don't have to execute that immediately. You can use it later by performing a query method on it. Here I've created an explainable object that looks at execution stats. If I scroll up, I can see my query planner section as well as my execution stats. Here I got 100 documents back, that's n returned, looked at 100 index entries, examined 100 documents, and execution time millis was 0, which is to say less than a millisecond, so pretty fast. Let's see how it does without that index. Now keep in mind it still has the B1 index that I created earlier. Now when we look at our execution stats, it still returns 100 documents, but it had to look at 10,000 keys in order to make that happen, and look at each of the documents associated with those keys. Here I can see that it took 11 milliseconds, so a lot longer. It started with an index scan using our B1 index, and that got us down to 10,000 documents. From there, it had to filter those documents for the ones where A was equal to 17. That got us down to 100. So we ended up with the same result because it's the same query, but because we were using a less efficient index, it was a lot less effective. I'm going to remake that index because I want to use it again. Great. Now let's look at our third explain option, all plans execution. It's a lot like execution stats, but instead of just giving the statistics for the winning plan, it gives you the statistics for all available plans that you might use, all available indexes, that is. So here's a query that uses all plans execution. Let's see what happens. If I scroll up, I can still see that I've got my query planner stage, as well as my execution stats stage. But when I look at all plans execution, I can see this query got nothing back and was very quick in the case where it used the B1 index to filter. What ended up happening was it was stopped partway through the query process because it was overruled by something else that already finished. So this didn't take very long, but it didn't get to the answer. Our winning plan, using the A1 B1 index, found 100 documents very quickly, and that's what its result was. So I can see that this is the index that will be used in production. By the way, I should note that even though this was an all plans execution, it did not include a collection scan, because anytime you're using an index, things are going to work better than if you don't. You use explain on a collection to get an explainable object. You can do a query planner, which is the default mode, execution stats in order to find out some statistics about it, or all plans execution in order to race the various possible indexes against each other. There's a saying I want you to keep in mind with indexes: an index for every query and a query for every index. Use explain to make sure that you've got the indexes you need, and if you're never using certain indexes, drop them. This is one of the keys to ensuring that you have high performance with MongoDB.